Big weekend ahead for the Texans and 10 questions long-term, one of which could be answered on Sunday, plus a little bit of drama, a little bit of Will Anderson, a lot to get into. Friday edition of The Locker Room on YouTube. Let's eat.
It's The Locker Room on YouTube. You know what it is. Let's get it. Hey, Locker Room. Yeah, we in the locker room. Texas talk. Yeah, you know what we about to do. Localize every angle's what we really do. We the source, we the pulse of the city too. Landlocked, got the game in the headlock. Localize every time, can't stop, won't stop.
It is the Locker Room, number one source for Texans digital content. I'm Landry Locker. You can see me here throughout the week, 10:30, also 9 a.m. on the SNL simulcast. We got a big weekend ahead of us. We got the Texans taking on the Tennessee Titans. Actually just hopped on with the fellows out there in Tennessee. And I got to tell you, man, this is probably the least excited that I've seen a fan base in a long time since the last weekend when I talked to people from Dallas. The Texans have played some very unexciting fan bases the last couple of weeks. And the Titans just, there doesn't seem to be a lot of excitement. It's kind of an awkward time for them. And I don't know how much excitement there really is in Tennessee. I do think there's going to be a tough matchup. I do think one of the 10 biggest questions that we'll get into here will perhaps be answered, or we'll get a large grasp of a little later on, but it will be interesting. And by the way, this video brought to you by BetUS. Use promo code YouTube150, get 150% bonus. Up to $2,000 and then 125% after that. We'll try to do a parlay a little bit later on and get to the bottom of that. The big news today, Will Anderson confirms that he is going to play. He was in the locker room, not this locker room, the Texans locker room. And here was what Will Anderson had to say about his excitement and everything going on leading up to this game Sunday at NRG.
Get back, man. I'm good.
How hard is it for you to watch on the sidelines?
Oh, it's very hard, man. I really have to keep myself calm, cool, and collected because I want to be out there so bad. But they've been holding the fort down, and, man, they've been rushing their butts off, and the D-line been going crazy. Defense been going crazy. So it was just a beautiful thing to see, especially just taking a step back and looking at it, man, how hard those guys work. And it's just exciting to be a part of this team.
You know, you always talk about how much you're always trying to learn and see more. Your time being out, what have you, if anything, if you said, okay, I see something different now?
Yeah, honestly, this is just a time for me to step back and just get my ankle right, you know what I'm saying, during this time. But just also watching them being, here for the guys, I think for me, it helped me be a better leader, helped me be able to lead. And sometimes, like, I remember last year I had this happen to me. I kind of got down a little bit, forgot I had a C on my chest, and I really wasn't there for the guys. So, like, this year, I was trying to be pumped, be there for the guys, be a great leader, still learning from them, still keeping them encouraged, and just keep trying to be a good captain.
Is there anything more difficult about this injury? That incredible work together about recovery?
Yeah, it was sad. You know what I'm saying? Like felt like I was on the road, but God had other plans. So I'm not mad at that, man. I think get this little rest in, get this break, get back right, and I know something bigger and better is going to come.
Talk about getting right and kind of putting things in perspective. What do you want to see from yourself when you come back?
Yeah, I mean, the expectation is always the expectation. I just want to keep going
that
where I
old
was
school
at
today.
before the injury and everything like that. Like, I'm not going to go out there and try to be Superman. I'm not going to go out there and try to do anything out of the ordinary. I'm just going to be Will Anderson, go out there and play for my teammates, man, play for this team, and just have fun.
You mentioned the pressures and the sacks at a higher rate than last year.
Mm-hmm.
Is there something particular that's kind of clicked or turned for you compared to last year?
D-Hunt just told me to just run. And then again with Coach Rod and just going over my hands and going over my stat progression and stuff like that every day, just working it, letting it become brain memory, man. And I just being more comfortable with my rush and just getting off the ball and just keying the things I need to key. I think that was just the difference last year, not worrying about what move I was going to throw and just go and whatever happens. I don't even know what to call his move. It was like a Euro step, pull through spin. That's what I'm going to call it. But that was hands down my favorite one, man. Like, he just brings such a different rushing style to this defense that nobody's ever seen before. And I think that's what makes him so great. And it's just a blessing to have a guy like that on the team, man. We learn so much from him. He pours into us daily, man, and we're just super excited to have him.
Do you anticipate being on a snap count of any sort?
I don't know what they got planned. I know I'm active though, and I know I'm playing.
Do
So
you
There you
remember
go.
the last time you were on a snap count against the Titans?
I do. So, like I said, we don't know, but I'm
you're playing.
grateful for this opportunity. I'm excited for this opportunity. I can't wait to go back out there with the guys and go perform with them.
All right, there you go. 2 sacks in 12 snaps. In case anyone else didn't remember what happened when the last time that Will Anderson faced the Titans on a snap count. Let's get to the 10 biggest storylines for the remainder of the season, and one that's going to be on display this weekend. On the chat, H-Town Highlight says, don't mention a certain someone on here. I don't know who you're talking about. Are you talking about Steven Nelson? Are you talking about Steven Nelson? We might get into that a little bit later at the end. I think he had to get some stuff off his chest, and I was just kind of a pawn for him to be able to do that. Steven Nelson, it's hard to retire from football. It's hard, especially when you think you have a lot of football left. And a lot of times you just want to get stuff off your chest. It's kind of like, what's the Friends episode where they're arguing and then it's not really about the actual argument. It's a little deeper. I think he wants to get some stuff off his chest. And he follows the Texans. He covers the Texans. I know he's got a podcast or a stream that he's pushing. So there is that. But yeah, I think he was just trying to get a little bit off his chest today. And I think he got a little bit off. Steven Nelson is probably better than Okudah. I mean, he's definitely better than Okudah. It's not a probably. Like there's never been a doubt about that. Yeah, he's better. He's way better than Jeff Okudah. I think. Yeah, I would take Kamari Lassiter over Nelson right now too. Yeah, in this situation, I would with the contract and all the extra stuff, which I don't think helps him, especially here. But he's getting it off his chest, which is great. Good for him. Question 1, and we'll get a little bit more into it because a former Texan kind of threw the Texans under the bus earlier today, and it just kind of turned into kind of like a snowball effect of other former Texans wanting to talk about other things. We'll get to that in a sec. We'll also get to the parlay of the week for the Texans, as well as some other things. But question 1 for the remainder of the season: how does this offensive line hold up? I don't think the offensive line is going to turn into a really, really good offensive line, but how much do they hold up? How much is this offensive line going to hold up for the remainder of the season? Are you optimistic? Are you pessimistic? Do you think that CJ and Bobby Slowick have to overcome it? That's really the question, but this is going to be one of their bigger tests this weekend. Slowick has addressed it. D'Amico's addressed it. How do they attack it? Do they try to go on the outside and make Sweat have to run a little bit? How are they going to attack this Titans defensive line, and how does the offensive line hold up? I think this is a really good test for them, one of their bigger ones, and hopefully they get the dub, and hopefully they pass it, because you're going to need them. And that's one of the bigger questions that could shape up this week, because if this goes as bad as it potentially could, then we're going to have an even lot more questions about this squad. So that's question 1. How does the offensive line hold up? Question 2 for the remainder of the season: how elite can the defense be? You have a really, really good defense. They haven't all been fully healthy. Most likely going to be without Fatukasi this week. And then Danico Autry, he's questionable, although he didn't practice today. He is questionable. So we'll see what happens with him. He is questionable. We've mentioned this earlier today, I think, myself and Cody Stutes. And this was the last time that Steven Nelson was mentioned outside of when he tweets during games, and it's kind of entertaining. The only person in the D'Amico Ryans era to not practice on Friday and play was Steven Nelson last year. And it was a time when Stingley was out, and he went out there, and I believe they won the game. I'm not sure which one it was. We actually talked about it, because I think his story now is that, they forced him or they tricked him into playing. I know that there were reports that he was working out on the side field. And I actually gave him a lot of credit for doing that. But how elite can the defense be? We shall see. I think you can have an elite corner duo. I think you already have elite edge guys. What happens with the rest of the defense? How elite can they be? Is that what your real key to success is going to be? We'll get to that in a sec. Number 3, have we seen the worst of Bobby? And I think this is important. Have we seen the worst of Bobby?
Damn it, Bobby.
Let's just hope the answer to that is yes. Because if we see Bobby Slowick looking like he did when Nico Collins was out, and obviously if Nico Collins is in, that kind of eliminates that, but he's got to be a little more imaginative. You can't have the end of the Green Bay game. You can't have the end of the Lions game. Have we seen the worst of Bobby? If the answer to that is yes, then that could put the Texans in position to be where they want to be on the big scale of things. Question 4. And I know a lot of people around here don't like to ask this question. But question number 4, can Tank Dell finally look like a true number 2 receiver? And I'm not sitting here saying that it's all Tank's fault, but what we thought we were going to see from Tank this year and what we've actually seen has not played out. And at one point you thought you had 3 top-end receivers in Nico Collins, Stephon Diggs, and Tank Dell. We haven't seen Tank Dell produce. And regardless of the what, the why, whether it's CJ Stroud getting more time, whether it's CJ Stroud increasing his confidence, whether it's Bobby Slowick calling plays, we're going to have to see Tank Dell produce like a clear-cut number 2 wide receiver if this offense is going to have a chance to go deep into the playoffs and further than they ever have, which is the AFC Championship game, which would be 2 playoff wins. Right now you have a 3-headed monster on offense. It's Mixon, it's CJ, and it's Nico Collins. You're going to have to get you a consistent number 2 option top end in Tank Dell, especially given the fact that when you had Nico and Tank, you still felt that there was a need to trade for Stephon Diggs. So that tells you all that you need to know there. Question 5, can they ice up week 18? I think it's really important. Texans probably aren't going to get the number 1 seed. They're not going to get a bye, but you want to be in a position to where you don't really need to play your top guys week 18 and you can rest up for the playoffs and have a full strength squad, which is something you really haven't had for the majority of the season. Nico Collins and Joe Mixon have played about 2.5 games together, even less if you consider that Nico Collins was on a snap count last game. Can they ice up in week 18? Figure out what you're going to do, take care of the division, which could happen sooner rather than later, and then be able to ice up in week 18. That's question number 5. That's something that they got to figure out. Tony Yayo says Tank Dell is Kiki QT. I think that's a little much at this point. I think that might be just a tad too much. Question 6, can a third passing option emerge? Whether it's Dalton Schultz, whether it's John Mechie, not just doing what he's done recently, but perhaps even more, can they develop a third passing option? In other words, defenses, they're playing deep on Nico and Tank Dell. Can an intermediate passing option, whether it's Schultz or really Mechie, Woods, maybe a little bit, can a third passing option emerge for CJ Stroud? Maybe it's Joe Mixon. Joe Mixon's kind of more capable of receiving than he gets credit for. So that's question number 6. Question number 7, can they avoid the must-have exam? I threw this comparison out the other day. There's 3 games in 10 days against 3 of the teams that you thought were going to be the best in the league heading into the season: the Miami Dolphins, the Kansas City Chiefs, and then the Baltimore Ravens on Christmas. It would be great to be able to compete with those teams, but you don't want to make it a must. I compare it to college, where there's a lot of policies, a lot of classes where you don't have to take the final exam, which is usually hard. You don't have to take the final exam if you show up to class and take care of business up to that point. Can the Texans do that? Now, this is kind of a little bit contradictory to that, because I'm basically talking about minimizing the impact of those games, but they're also going to have to eventually prove that they can beat good teams. Now, it might not be a do or die situation, and maybe you can minimize it, and maybe you can even ice up guys in that 3 games in the 10-day stretch. But they're going to have to prove that they can beat good teams because they, outside of Buffalo, and let's just be completely honest, Buffalo was very banged up when they faced the Texans. They also didn't have Amari Cooper. And it kind of set up good for the Texans, kind of like how the Jets beating the Texans set up good for them. Buffalo's a really, really good team. That is a nice dub. But you had the meltdown against the Lions, the meltdown against the Packers. Can they beat good teams? That's question number 8. Question number 9, will Harris be back and how would he fit? Christian Harris has been kind of a popular topic. They haven't given any updates. I know they're trying to protect the player. I actually think there's been kind of an opposite impact to that, in that now people just assume that he should be back anytime. We've told you from the jump, myself and Cody Stutes, SNL, subscribe to Stutes' channel as well. We've told you from the very jump, from the rip, that he was not going to be back week 4. And after December is perhaps the earliest, and there's no guarantees there with Christian Harris. And when he does come back, how does he fit in? Jalen Petrie right now is basically your other linebacker. How will he fit in? I think that'll be something to check out. They did make Josh Allen look terrible in that game. 100% did. And then question 10, and this is the most important. Can CJ Stroud flip the switch? Will CJ Stroud be able to flip the switch? Much like we've seen quarterbacks do when crunch time comes around. We saw Joe Burrow do it early. We've seen a lot of quarterbacks do that. CJ Stroud's going to have to do that. Is he going to have to overcome poor offensive line play? Is he going to have to overcome Bobby Slowick? Who knows? But that's something that CJ Stroud's going to have to figure out. Can he flip the switch? It is the Locker Room, number 1 source for Texans digital content. Be sure to subscribe, thumbs up, right along for the best Texans coverage in the game. Let's get to this parlay. Bet US right now, YouTube 150. Hit the parlay yesterday in the Browns Steelers game. We're going to go props. I don't feel great about the straight up bets. So we're going to go props. You see, we got 1770 in the account. We're going to go NFL. We're obviously going to go to the Texans versus the Titans. And we are going to go prop parlay. I'm seeing these for the first time as well as you. Texans minus 7.5. I'm just not feeling that as much. The passing yards for CJ Stroud, over under 239. Let's take the over. Tennessee has a really bad secondary. Let's take the over 239 in the passing. Let's take the over in the passing TDs, which is even money. So this parlay is setting up quite nicely. We're already up to plus 165. Let's go to the receiving yards. Calvin Ridley, 59.5. He's going to be on Stingley Island. That's not ideal. Dalton Schultz, 27.5. This is still really low. So we're going to go with the over on the 27.5 for Dalton Schultz. Titans fans are really in love with this Westbrook fella. So we'll take his over as well. It's only 32.5. And there's also interceptions, all that. But right now we're already up to 675, which is good odds for a 4-thing parlay. So we will go ahead and put $70 on that, and we'll go to an even 700 before. So $70 to win 542. CJ Stroud over 239.5. CJ Stroud over 1.5 passing TDs. Schultz over 27.5 yards, and then Westbrook 32.5. Place bet 50 to win 542. Let's feast. You can do that as well. Go to Bet US. Use the promo code YouTube 150. And you will be on your way. So there you go. Little quick 500. Never hurt anyone. Nathan saying Army money line over Notre Dame. I'm going to stay away from that. Maybe a live bet could potentially be an option, but I am definitely going to stay the hell away from that. So those are the 10 questions when it comes to the Texans. Let me know if I missed any of those questions. We had a little interesting situation someone says BetUS isn't legal in Texas or I'm not sure. Yeah, it is. Go to betus.com. You can get it. You can cash out and everything. It is definitely legal in Texas to do that. Just can't do the casino apps. But yes, it is definitely legal, of course. So go ahead and do that. BetUS. Use promo code YouTube150 and you won't regret it. $20, it gets you about what? 45? Is that right? 40, 50, something like that. Yeah, don't quote me. Yeah, I think it'll get you 50. 20 will get you 50. Don't quote my math. Desmond King. It's been a weird last couple of years for Desmond King. They've released him, brought him back, released him, brought him back, and then they released him again, and he is gone. He posted this on Instagram and he posted it on Twitter. Desmond King posted this picture right here. And it basically just says, to Desmond King, you are hereby notified that effective immediately, your practice player contract with the club covering the 2024 season has been terminated for the reason checked below. And the reason that was checked was, in the judgment of the club, your skill or performance has been unsatisfactory as compared with that of other players competing for positions in the club's practice squad. Signed. He said, everybody know I was dogging their ass. Y'all could have kept this at Houston Texans. So I don't know whether he was saying that he was actually roasting folks in practice. I don't know what he was saying. But he posted that. He has since deleted it. Now, I replied to the post, and I thought it was pretty funny. I just basically said that Steven Nelson should have Des King on his podcast. Steven Nelson has talked a lot about his podcast. He's talked a lot about the Texans. I thought he was in the space. And I thought that Steven Nelson was a guy who was trying to talk ball in this platform. That's what I thought. So I just said, he should be in a podcast. And that resulted in Steven Nelson just talking all kinds of crazy to your boy. I don't know what he let me read this tweet from Steven Nelson, and we'll get a little bit into this. But Steven Nelson, what is his Twitter handle? Because I didn't even mention Steven Nelson. I didn't mention him. I just thought that two pissed off Texans corners would get that. Okay, here's what he said. Let's see. He said, "Let's get something clear. You're a bum, and always." Let me see this. So hold on. Let's just get this up. Okay. So I just said Desmond King puts a bow on his wild last couple of years with the Texans. I anticipate Steven Nelson trying to get him on his cast soon. That's it. I thought he was in the space. He talks a lot about it. He said, Steven Nelson said this, all caps, man. Landry, let's get something clear. You're a bum and always will be. My kids have more property investment you ever will. Plus A10 fired you. No, LMAO. Plus you're mad because I won't get on your bum ass show. You don't make enough for me, my guy. You're not that guy. 3 laughing emojis. Who the F told you to mention me? You better ask what happened to the past security guard. I don't know what the past security guard means or anything like that. I just told him there. I just said, because I just thought I thought he was in the space. I said, I thought you'd have him on the podcast. I know you're rich. Not the least bit upset you won't come on. I'm not mad at all. LOL. He said, good answer. Glad you cleared the air. I'll delete everything. Just don't mention me. Funny man. Not on your show either. My lawyer is the best. Thanks, bub. I mean, come on. Your lawyer, because we're talking ball. So that was the end of that. And then I guess he had a live. A couple people said that he had a live, and he talked about D'Amico and Caserio, whatever the hell he wanted to talk about. Steven Nelson did. Good for him. Really, good for you, Steven Nelson, because the only time that Steven Nelson has ever come up in this podcast is when last year when we're covering the Texans, and I talk about the competition at backup left guard. So, of course, Steven Nelson was going to be brought up last year. He was on the team. He was a pivotal part of the team, which we made very clear. And as far as trying to get him on the podcast, that's never happened. Like there's been 2 times that has come up. That has come up when we've been reading his tweets and people in the comments say you should have Steven Nelson on. And I say that would be entertaining. It's the only time. And then Aaron Wilson was talking about it. And I said, yeah, Steven Nelson, his podcast, I don't know what the numbers are or anything like that. But you should tell him to come on. But as far as me begging Steven Nelson to get on the podcast, that's never happened. And quite frankly, I hear all these stories that he's telling about the Texans, and it's interesting. Like, right? It's interesting. So he's mad at Nico. He's mad at Caserio because he has a different point of view. But when I see that you're actually lying on me, that's where I have question marks about how honest you're being and how sane you're being. Because I've never questioned Steven Nelson's ability. But before I get to that, let me just give you a receipt right here. He says that I've begged him to come onto my podcast and that he rejected me, so I'm upset. First of all, I just thought he would get Desmond King on his podcast. So that's one. Second of all, there's no, my numbers aren't going to blow up because Steven Nelson hops on the podcast. I'm not trying to be a jerk or anything. My numbers are not going to blow up. Second of all, the only reason that he's come up is because the chat, the people in the chat brought it up. And then I said, yeah, I would take Steven Nelson on here. And it's not a podcast war because he's got to get his weight up before he worries about this space. But let me just provide you with a receipt because a listener actually sent me the screenshot. And there's going to be 2 funny things about this. I don't have Steven Nelson's number. I don't know anyone that talks to Steven Nelson. And quite frankly, think about this. I go to the Houston Texans practices every day. I talk to D'Amico Ryans 3 days a week. I talk to D'Amico Ryans today. I have relationships with Caserio. How much does it benefit me to have Steven Nelson on just talking crazy, especially if I know a lot of it's crazy? Here it is right here. Sarah, you said this. You said 100% true. People in the chat ask you. I'm glad you said that. And he says he rejected me. I'm going to put a visual proof of how crazy he's being right now on this. This is from someone named Travis Witherspoon. Read this right here. This is Steven Nelson's video right here. He sent me this screenshot. Here's what he said. Landry Locker wants you to be a guest on his pod. He's one of few guys who gave you the props you deserve last year. He said the Texans don't make the playoffs last year without you. Yes, I did. I also said he's a little bit crazy, and that probably benefits him. I stand by that 100%. Look what he said, though. This is where it's hilarious. Look what he said. Look what he said. Tell him I'm available at the Corner Suite Pod bet from Travis Witherspoon. Did I even follow up on this? No, but look at this. He's saying I told that bum ass dude I'm not going to be on his podcast. This is on his own comments that someone sent me, and he's saying, tell Landry Locker I'm available. This is 10 days ago, 13 days ago. How make that make sense? Make that make sense. The chat has said it. The only reason it comes up this season is because there have been some funny tweets. Like following Steven Nelson tweets during Texans games has been funny. That's the only reason that it comes up. But I'm just begging for Steven Nelson to come on the podcast. How often do we even have guests? This is my own personal platform. I don't benefit as much from that. I've been doing this every day for 3 years. It's not I don't have generational wealth like Steven Nelson. I cover the team. I'm not a jock sniffer, all that type of stuff. They're right there. He's saying, yeah, I'll go on the podcast. It's not even me asking. So how does that even make sense? Read it again one more time. Tell him I'm available. And then the guy told me, hey, Steven Nelson said he's available. I said, oh, okay. When did he say this? He sent me this screenshot. I'm not dying to get Steven Nelson on. Come on, brother. Let's be serious. And then I thought about this. And this is why I'm just kind of a pawn in this game. I thought about this. have I been critical of Steven Nelson for being a little bit loony? The first time we interviewed him on the radio, my co-host said that he's always thought of himself as an underdog, and he kind of took exception to it and said, I'm a big name or whatever. And then you Google it, and there's like a full feature on him being the underdog. There's quotes on him being the underdog and all that type of stuff. So then I just thought, like, what have I said about Steven Nelson before? Like, what did I say about Steven Nelson? Because I guess he went on a tangent saying he didn't get enough love for playing hurt last year. He didn't get enough credit and respect for all he did for the Texans and all this type of stuff. So I just thought about it. Like, what did I say about Steven Nelson? So let's see what I've said about Steven Nelson. Okay, let's just go down. Steven Nelson, popular today. I've got the Nick Caserio quote. I respect Steven Nelson. No, he doesn't respect my wardrobe selection. Sound Caserio. I'm seeing this with y'all. Let's see. This was January 13th of this year. Steven Nelson, cannot say it enough. After weird offseason stuff, dude balled the second he got to camp. Has battled injuries. Wow. The props for the injuries all season and consistently on the field. This is on the number one rated radio show in town and the top stream. He's getting this type of love. Good to see some glory with those guts. Hashtag We Are Texans. That's right there. That's your boy right there. What else? What else has been said about Steven Nelson? There's some mentions right there. I definitely made fun of him for the Caserio vest thing. I think it's crazy. I definitely thought it was weird that he was trying to get his way out of town. And I think the last thing I said basically is that if you weasel your way out of town by talking crap about the Texans, it's not the same as it once was, and people aren't going to side with you. But as far as the respect that he claims he wants, I mean, that's about as cut and dry as it's been, and it's been pretty on point with what's been said. But he wants to get it off his chest. He can get it off his chest. I'm just not. There's going to be some players that I talk about that might get pissed. This just wasn't one of those. This just wasn't one of those times. Literally giving him all the flowers he wants. Steven Nelson, cannot say it enough. After weird offseason stuff, dude balled out. Good to see the glory with those guts. Talking about the pick 6 against the Browns. So there you go. That's the end of that. The end. Boom. Yeah. So, okay. Space City Baller said, this is the guy who said he was an underdog, then had like 15 interviews contradicting it. Yeah. And that was where it was kind of weird. I think the edge kind of helps you become a better football player. I think that's probably what makes him what he is. But that's a receipt right there that he said he was coming on the podcast. That wasn't even me. It's the chat that says it. I'm not dying for that. I don't need that. Like just look at the actual numbers, the facts, all that type of stuff. Like just look at that. I don't care. I mean, I'm assuming you have generational wealth and stuff. So I don't think so. Steven Nelson still won a Nick vest low key. Sure. I don't know. I'm just kind of like weirded out by it. Like I'm not even, and the thing is, like, the Texans are popular right now. If this were 2021, 2022, I think that, maybe you would get a little bit more support. But dude, from his point of view too, and you guys know me, like I always respect the other point of view. I try to balance it out. Hell, even Amy Adams stank. Like, I understand why she hates Houston. Her dad owned the Oilers and probably took so much crap from Houston. So there's a little bit of pettiness there. Do I think it's weird? Yes. But even then I can respect that. I mean, from his point of view, he thinks he's still got some ball left. He doesn't like that it went down this way, and he wants to get it off his chest. Get it off his chest. You don't have to use me as a pawn for that. Like, am I the excuse for you to be able to go talk about D'Amico and Caserio? Like, at least tell the truth. Don't act like I've been trying to get him on the podcast. I've never done that. And the other thing is, like, he's a mild-mannered, like, dude. Like, it's like, I don't know what he's doing online, but he's a mild-mannered dude. So I don't know what is going on with him. I don't think they get where they got last year without him. I think he gutted it out. That's not hindsight. That was said in the moment on the biggest two platforms, digitally and radio-wise, consistently. So did I say that he's a little bit loony and crazy and he's his own worst enemy? I did. But I didn't. I praised him for being professional the entire season when Cooks wasn't. And I praised him for playing hurt. And I say that he's a little bit loony and a little bit crazy. That's it. Today was none of that. Today was, hey, I thought you talked about the Texans every chance you got. I thought you got a podcast. Des King seems like another DB that's kind of pissed off. So maybe you could get him on your podcast. And here's the other thing. He says, I'm doing it for clicks. I don't get clicks off of Steven Nelson. I promise. Like, I don't. Kubiak helped me out. Shout out to Gary Kubiak, friend of the show. It was great to talk to Gary Kubiak. Paul Wall, he said he's going to come on here sometime. That'll be cool. Paul Wall, appreciate you. Trying to get JJ, don't know. He reached out after I left 610. Maybe that'll happen. Steven Nelson doesn't get clicks for me. And the craziest thing is you say I'm trying to get clicks, and then you tease this whole irrational Twitter anger fest to drive people to a live stream, and then you're posting about the live stream. Who's trying to get clicks? That's not really what I do. I do a nightly show, I do a morning show, I cover the squad, and I have the radio background. That's it. Weird. Really weird. Really, 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 really strange, to say the very least. Yes, the D'Amico milk dud. I took what you said about Steven as a joke, nothing serious, because Steven and Desmond are cool. He spoke about Desmond on the video right before Lions. Yeah, they're cool. I figure you'd be on the podcast. That's what that is. Amy Paulsick is at she's at Amazon, doing her thing. So there you go. What is your dream team using only current and past Texans players? I would love to see a vid of your opinion on this one day. Dream team, like as far as like the all-time Texans team or something like that? Don't know. Dude, I've interviewed Steven Nelson a couple of times. It's been fine. It's not that entertaining. Like it's not the same as it is on Twitter. And see, this is how it happens right here. This is it right here. This is the prime example of how Steven, hey, he wants me to come on the podcast. No, this guy says that. And then I say, oh yeah, I don't, that might be funny. That might be entertaining. And then he says he'll come on, and then he acts like I beg him to be on the podcast. Like, come on, brother. Like this, let's just be serious. Like, I don't mind. If I needed to be the guy for you to get it off your chest, that's fine. That's fine. I thought you could just get it off your chest on your own. But you're blaming me and saying I did stuff that I didn't. Is there going to be a time, you guys, there's going to probably be a time where there's going to be a player pissed at me and maybe I said too much, and that's where you handle it. It's happened before. This wasn't that. But if I can at least get like the assist, like the alley-oop, like I just said one thing and I threw the alley-oop and you yammed it and got that D'Amico and Caserio stuff off your chest, props to you, brother. Props to you, man. Very, very much. Very, 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 very happy that I could assist you on that. But don't make up stuff and say I've said some crazy stuff. I've said that, I said that you're a little wacky, a little bit crazy, your own worst enemy. Sometimes that stuff is a little bit wild. But when I was the one guy in this town that gave props for Steven Nelson playing hurt more than anyone. And many times it comes up, it's because he's tweeting about the Texans. So let's be serious. That's it. That's just what that is. That's enough of that. Texans versus Titans. I was on the Titans Coliseum podcast, and I know that these guys argue a lot with Texans fans. And I got to tell you, man, this is the most unconfident group of fans that I've seen in a long time. They're talking about next year. They're talking about the Vrabel years. They're talking about Mike Mularkey. They're talking about everything but this game. I don't think I've ever seen a more uninterested Tennessee representation. And I know that three guys don't speak for the entire fan base. They're kind of my pulse of what's going on with Tennessee, because they're very passionate. They're very persistent. They're very country. God, these dudes are country as hell. And they don't seem to have a lot of confidence in what's going on with this squad. And I just wonder, is there any way that the Titans win this game? Like, what does it look like if the Titans win this game? How does it look? Is it just physical dominance in the trenches? Is that the recipe for the Titans to win this game? Just complete physical dominance? Because it's hard for me to imagine that Josh Allen, aka Will Levis, is going to be able to have his way with this defense. This is a defense that we're looking at one of the best young secondaries in the NFL. We're looking at one of the 3 best edge combos in the NFL. We're looking at one of the best interior rushers in the NFL in Tim Settle. We're also looking at a quarterback who runs into a lot of sacks. We're looking at a team that has 1 wide receiver in Calvin Ridley, and we've seen how Derek Stingley handles that. And we're looking at a team that just lost their best corner. Their secondary is a little bit banged up. I'm trying to figure out, like, what does this look like? I had a grasp of what a Jets loss looked like. I don't have really a vision of what it looks like. Now, with that said, I don't see, the 7.5. Maybe it's a good bet. Maybe it's not. I just find myself not feeling really much of a blowout. I don't see this being much of a blowout. They're bad. TA is right. They're absolutely bad. The Titans are one of the worst teams in the league. They're really bad. And the beauty of it is, it's not like there's like some next generation type of quarterback that's going to bail them out of this and cover up what they've had going on right now. I don't think that's going to be the case. So it's really hard for me to imagine this. I do wonder what the atmosphere is going to be like. It's definitely going to be a step down from what the Texans have been dealing with all these primetime games. Outside of the Detroit one was kind of popping both ways. No, that was the most intense. And then you had the Cows where the Texans take over, and then you had the Jets. Sunday primetime kind of speaks for itself. So we'll see what it looks like. I'll be honest with you. I have a hard time imagining and envisioning the Tennessee Titans winning this game. Very, very hard time imagining that. But appreciate everyone for coming through. The 10 big questions. One will be on display. The offensive line, how are they going to hold up? They'll have their biggest test. Nico will be back. You heard Will Anderson confirm that he's going to be on the field, and it's going to be fun. So always remember, when it comes to this Texan stuff, whether the Texans are winning, whether they're losing, whether Steven Nelson is getting it off his chest and using me as a pawn to do so, when it comes to this Texan stuff, we are all in it together. Subscribe, like, ride along. Appreciate y'all. What an effing football weekend ahead. Bet US, promo code YouTube150. I'm going to go make some college bets right damn now. Let's see.
Won't stop. Yeah, we top 2 and we not too plugged in daily digital on YouTube. We got taste for days, opinions to give, we got takeaways. If it's up, then it's up. We number 1. You don't need to try your luck. Locker room, yeah, we in the locker room. Texas talk, yeah, you know what we about to do. Localize, every angle's what we really do. We the source, we the pulse of the city too.